If you want a perfect study routine to ace your exams, then you've come to the right place. Because I've done an undergrad and postgraduate degree, and now I'm a med student. And from my 7 years at uni, I've figured out how to use exam season effectively so that I could study efficiently and still have time for more of the things I care about. So I'll go through a 4-part method so that you can do the same, and some parts might be controversial, but it all works together, so stick around until the end. So the first part of the routine is to create your game plan, and there's 2 parts to this. The first is making one document that has a list of everything related to your exams. This includes your exam dates, subjects, how much they're worth, and the resources you have to study from. I remember how during my undergrad degree, some topics in the syllabus weren't taught in lectures, so include those too. Having everything in one document makes it easy to see how much progress you're making as the days go by. The second part of your game plan is to count how many days you have up until 5 days before your exams and divide this by how many subjects you have. Split the days evenly for now, and in a later section of the video, I'll explain what to do with this time and with those extra 5 days. After you've made your game plan, you can move on to making your overall study routine. And this isn't just about prioritizing subjects, it's about knowing how to prioritize each subject. And the second part is going to explain how much time to spend on them so that you optimize the time leading up to your exams. But the first part is asking yourself this question. If you had an exam tomorrow, what topics would you really want to have questions on? These are the topics or subjects that are at the bottom of your priorities, so color them as green for now. This leaves behind topics that you aren't as comfortable in. So now ask yourself, if you had an exam tomorrow, what topics would you definitely not want coming up? These should be at the top of your priorities because you aren't confident in them, so color them red, and whatever subject is left, highlight in orange. Now the second part is to adjust the days you split for your subjects in your game plan. And I said to begin with, split them evenly. But now, for any red subject, add on a day or 2 and reduce that same amount for your subjects in green. If you don't have any green subjects or you're unsure, then look back at your practice exams for your latest marks or do a practice exam on them now. As an example from my undergrad degree, my weaker subject was neurology and a better one was immunology. So I shifted time from one to the other because the progress from an extra day on neurology would be a lot more than another on immunology. And you can clearly see how much this helped. But an important thing to realize is that just because a topic is hard doesn't mean it's important. If it rarely comes up in past papers, then it isn't as high a priority. So note down recurring topics in your lessons and practice exams to prioritize them more. So you have an idea of how you'll prioritize different subjects, so now we can figure out how to spend the hours in your days and weeks. But before I go through how to plan your week, this might sound like toxic productivity, but what you need to do first is stop thinking of weekends as different to weekdays. You should do some studying every day so that you can afford to have consistent breaks every day in the week. This gives you a reward at the end of each day instead of at the end of the week where you might just burn out before then. So now, to start planning out your days and weeks, schedule in your non-negotiables. These are things you know will happen for sure, like assignments and classes, and hopefully eating and sleeping. And for the non-negotiables that use a lot of energy like your assignments and classes, schedule in time right after them where you can have some fun or get some active rest. For me, that's usually going to the gym or playing the piano, but recently I've spent time learning from productivity experts so that I can organize my life better and maintain my personal interests this exam season. And that's through our quick sponsor of the video, Skillshare, the largest online learning community with thousands of classes led by experts in productivity, marketing, computer science, and more. Some of the classes I've been learning from on Skillshare taught me how to create a digital system that was simple to use but effective in managing the day-to-day objectives of my life. And this was through the learning path called Supercharge Your Productivity with Notion, where I learned how to organize databases to help manage my lectures and YouTube videos in a way that was enjoyable, because the classes encouraged a practical learning approach where I could apply what I was learning straight away. And if you're not sure of where to start or what to learn, Skillshare has designated learning paths. These are hand-picked classes that build on each other to help you reach your learning goals so that you can go from a beginner to an expert in a range of categories, including design, productivity, marketing, and more. So invest in yourself by starting a learning journey on Skillshare. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, gaining access to thousands of classes. So now that you're scheduled in your non-negotiables and active rests, you can add in your subjects. And there's 3 ways to do this to maximize your time. The first is to limit the number of subjects you do per day to 2. What works best is pairing one red subject that you need to work on more with a green or orange subject. And for deciding when to study, schedule in your weaker topic at a time where you know you'll have more energy, with your stronger topic where you'll have less. For example, I know that around 7:30 PM I have good focus after dinner, so I try to get a good amount of studying done or focus on making these videos. But when it's 9:30 PM, I don't have as much energy, so I'd study something that's a bit easier. For example, I'd review my flashcards because it takes less effort. Having 2 subjects makes it less repetitive and gives time for your brain to consolidate what you learned from the other subject. But whether you do 1 or 2 subjects, the second thing to do is to keep track of what you find hard so that you can work on it the next time you go through the subject. For example, if I'm doing questions on neurology and I find questions specifically on strokes difficult, I'd make sure to go through strokes more than other questions for the next time I do neurology in the week. And that could be spending half of the next neurology session on that specific topic. This is basically active recall for targeting your weaker areas. And look, I know it's not fun to go through something you're not yet good at, but you can't realistically expect yourself to improve on your weaker topics if you only spend 1 hour on it. So now the third way to develop this daily and weekly routine for your subjects is to have some flexibility. This is by having at least half a day empty for any changes. Because it could be that you might have spent less time on a subject and started to forget things, or it could be that things unexpectedly came up, which happens often for us as students. This unscheduled time is good for spending that extra bit of effort on a difficult topic, or catching up on something that you missed because life got in the way. The main thing is that this daily and weekly routine is realistic so that you can reliably follow it most of the time. So you have your exam season routine, but in the game plan section of the video, I said to keep about 5 days before your exam empty. And that's because you want to make your exam week routine slightly different to your exam season routine. And the most important thing to do during this week is to make your study sessions to be as similar to your exams as possible. So this means you don't want to spend time on study techniques like the Pomodoro technique, which if you don't know is where you spend 25 minutes studying and then take a 5-minute break. Because in the exam, you're not going to stop after 25 minutes for a break. So to make it realistic, focus on practice exams and spend time on creating summary sheets so that you actively extract information out of your brain to see how much you remember over the past few months. Because this is what exams are there to test you on. Doing this helps you see patterns of what you're still getting wrong and helps you go in one of two directions. And I'd recommend the second. But the first is to go over what you still get wrong so that you can try to understand it better. And that could be by doing more questions or watching videos to fill in any gaps. And the second is to actually cut your losses and leave that topic behind. Because at this point, you're probably better off consolidating the topics you're comfortable in so that you guarantee the marks in them and avoid making the silly mistakes that cost you those easy marks. That's basically all you need to do in those 5 days before exams because it's going to prime your brain to study and focus for the right amount of time. But I have a few general tips to use throughout this whole routine. The first is making sure to use pre-existing resources as much as possible. Making your own flashcards or questions takes a long time, so if there's question banks available, use them. I know there's resources for GCSEs, A-levels, NEET and MCAT, and they're similar to the real exams, so it's as good as it gets for practice. The next is to get out of the habit of spending time watching things for entertainment, especially towards exam week. If you have to watch something, switch to study with me videos. I'll have one coming soon, so subscribe and stick around for them. And the third is realizing that this isn't the first time you're doing exams. You've been through this process before and made it this far. So do what feels best when it comes to exam week so that you minimize how stressed you get. Some of you might work best with friends or at the library, and others of you might work better alone at home. You would know based on past experiences what keeps you calm, so stick with doing that because it worked before. So now you know how to create the perfect study routine for exam season. But a problem that almost every student has is feeling tired after school or uni, making it difficult to focus on studying. So in this video here, I talk about a method that can help you study effectively even when you feel tired. So click the video to learn more.